Hey everyone, it's Zach and welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how I set up and stocked my new 250 litre or 65 gallon tank for y'all that use that Imperial system. I'll be running you through my choice of substrate, hardscape, and the fish that I have in there as of now. I've chosen to use scoria stones as a base layer, and I've also selected 2 types of sand to use as a cap. All of these have been pre-washed so that they don't cloud up the water. I purchased a 6 kilo bag of scoria stones from my local hardware shop, Bunnings. I decided to use a fine and a coarse grain of sand that I got from the beach, just so that I had a few options. It'll also help the tank look a little bit nicer in the end. To cut down on costs, I like to use materials that are readily available within my local area, always making sure to check that they are aquarium safe and cleaning them thoroughly before use so that your water doesn't get all cloudy. To start, I added a small layer of scoria stones in the bottom of the tank. This is only about 2 centimeters tall. The scoria will act as a nutrient retainer and help to keep beneficial nutrients in the substrate so that the plants can thrive in the tank. Doing this also reduces the amount of sand I have to use, which is nice. Next, I started adding the coarse sand. Since the scoria has some large gaps, the coarse sand won't fall into as many places and will fill up what it has to. I made this layer roughly 2 to 3 centimeters high, and then using my trusty flour jar, I gently patted it down and evened out any large mounds. To cap it off, I added a small layer of fine sand. This isn't anything special, it's mainly for aesthetic purposes, as I'm not a huge fan of coarse substrates. I like using very fine grain to give it that nice cap on the top. I took my time to make sure that all the sand was flat, and any areas that needed extra, I added it using my trusty little jar. Now we get to the fun part. Since all the substrate is in, this means we can start to hardscape the tank. This is a very important step when it comes to setting up an aquarium. The hardscape provides cover for all your fish and helps to guide the eye through the tank. I'm using a few different types of wood for this. It's a mix of Malaysian driftwood, Mapani wood, spiderwood, and some other wood that I've treated from the beach. I didn't pre-soak them, and this comes to haunt me later in the scaping. I started by placing the largest bit of Malaysian driftwood in the middle of the tank. This really draws your eye in and provides a nice little bit of cover for the fish. I wanted to provide the fish with a bit of cover, especially if they needed to get to the other side without going through the open middle section. They'd be more inclined to having a back passage. I then placed a bit of small beach driftwood to try and cover up the overflow, but that didn't really turn out too well. It didn't really want to stay up. Next, the large trunk was placed into the corner of the aquarium. I'll be using this as a hide for all the fish that are a bit scared. To help create a more naturalistic look, I also placed a smaller piece of spiderwood in the crevice. This makes the area quite dense, with large area behind it for the fish to hide in. I moved over to the other side of the tank and tried to place the larger piece of spiderwood, but it didn't really cooperate. I tried and failed a couple of times to use a thin piece of driftwood, but then I gave up. I figured I'd move over and use some other wood. I actually forgot that I had a small bit of Mapani wood left, so I wedged that under and it worked amazingly. It was the perfect bit and it looked quite nice. It did need me to hang on, and it actually looked quite cool in the end. As you can see, I've used a large amount of wood to achieve this scape, and I'm quite impressed with how it's came out so far. Now comes the funnest bit in my opinion. It's time to fill the tank up and see if everything stays down. I just popped the hose in the overflow and filled both the sump and the tank up at the same time. All this water was treated with Prime, so it's ready to go. The spiderwood on the right started to float, so I just popped my piece of Anubias on top of it and it was sorted. I then spent the next few minutes fixing some small things and getting it looking pretty again. I didn't want the trunk to stick out of the water, so I cut it off using a small saw and then placed it over on the left hand side of the tank. Right there. This worked in my favour. It provided a nice little cave for my pleco that will be going in it. Doing this made the trunk itself float, but a rock fixed that as I put it on the top. I left it overnight so the water could clear up and that the wood could fully soak. It's the next morning and the hardscape is all sunk, and it's time to add some life to the tank. And no, sadly it's not fish yet. They'll be coming next. I'm going to be adding a few different plants. Starting on the left hand side of the tank, I pushed some Java fern in the crevice between the wood. If you don't know, Java ferns actually grow from a rhizome, which means it cannot be placed in the substrate. If you bury the rhizome, it will actually kill it. You can try planting the roots, but this is often quite hard. It's just easier to attach them to something that the water can flow over, like rocks and wood. Using superglue also helps do this. Once this starts to grow in the tank, it'll look amazing. Now let's jump over to the other side. You can see the Anubias that is keeping the spiderwood down. It's quite well established on this log. It's time to shove some Amazon swords into the substrate. I planted them in a triangular formation. It fills the area nicely and provides a ton of cover for the fish. I did have a little bit of trouble planting one of them due to the substrate being too thin, but this was fixed quite easily by adding a bit of extra sand with my trusty flour jar. A few more Amazon swords were added to the left. These give the area a bit more texture, and overall, it's a nice looking tank now. To finish the planting off, I added the water lily to the back. I may end up moving this to a different spot in the future if it keeps getting stuck in the overflow. Luckily enough, I had actually been cycling some media for quite a while, and since using pre-cycled media in the sump, I was able to put fish in right away. I did wait a couple of days before doing this just to make sure the water was safe. I started by catching all the fish from my temporary holding tank and bagged them up. I managed to get some amazing B-roll that I recorded over a few days, so I'll be narrating over that for everyone at home. I'll start by talking about the second hardest fish to bag, my 4-inch pleco. When I netted him, he flared up, sticking himself in the net. He refused to come out no matter what. They actually have little spines on the side of the head, and when they go in nets, sometimes they flare up and it's very hard to get them out. I tried my best to put him in a bag, but my attempts were futile. I ended up placing him in the net straight to the water, and he let go. I'm lucky that my water parameters are similar in most of my tanks, so acclimating the fish is just a good habit, but emergency dumps like this aren't completely dangerous. Next, I'm going to be talking about those gosh darn little wiggly things called curly loach. They are the bane of my existence. There are actually 2 species in the tank, but both are as hard as each other to catch or film. I have 1 banded curly loach in the tank, and he hangs out with my 3 gold whiptail curlies. They tend to go crazy and swim around the tank when trying to catch, and I did hold my tongue after nearly 30 minutes and finally got them bagged into the tank. All the other fish were relatively easy to catch. The tank also houses 2 adult angelfish. These guys are around 3 inches in length and both have amazing colors. The white platinum angel's name is Yin. She is actually the other half of my original 2 angels, which are Yin and Yang, which I'll talk about in a future video if y'all want to see that. The other strapping young lad is Allspice, and he's a black marble angel. I love his colors, and having a little bit of yellow in there just really brings them together. Both guys are getting along quite nicely, and I'm yet to see any aggression. Next up, I have my 2 German blue rams. I love these 2. They're so energetic and they love to chase each other around. They also have the perk of being amazingly colored, exhibiting a nice blue when in the right light. One of the cutest fish in the tank is my 4 albino cories that skate across the bottom. These little fellas are the cleanup crew for the food and help keep my substrate turned over. They're always super energetic and help liven the tank up. I also added a few golden mystery snails to help with algae if that ever raises its head. And about a week after filming this video, my local fish shop had cardinal tetra for $1 each. Being one of my favorite fish, I obviously bought 25 of them. The tank was looking quite bare and a little lackluster until they were added. They helped fill in the empty space towards the middle of the tank and added some much needed splash of color. Since most of the livestock I have in this tank is either black or white, I will be adding more fish to this tank in the future, but I'm not sure what to add. If you have any ideas or recommendations, I would love to hear them in the comments down below. To finish off the tank, I added some Osmocote aquatic tablets. These act as root tabs, and at 50 for $10 you can't go wrong. I grabbed these from Bunnings, but I'm sure you can get them from most gardening shops. I push one near each of the Amazon swords as these guys are really heavy root feeders. The plants will wrap their roots around these and start to flourish in a few weeks. The best thing about this method is you only have to replace them every 6 months. This means that a bag can last your tank for more than a year. With all the fish added and plants nourished, that concludes the setup video. I had a ball setting up this tank and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. If you have any ideas of what I could have done differently or things that I haven't done right, make sure to leave them in the comments down below. And tell me what fish you want to see in this tank. I'd love to hear your ideas. So thank you all for sticking through and watching the whole video. I really do appreciate it. And if you did indeed enjoy this video, leave a like. And if you want to keep up with future updates on the tank and new setups, make sure to subscribe. I will be doing plenty in the future and I can't wait to see y'all there. So until then, I shall see you later. Bye everyone.